3 knots, heading 274, range 95 meters, projectile mass 89 kilograms. Trust me.
I think I'm going to need some new underpants.
Copy that. Noted for the next supply drop.
Well, I guess it's better to just admit it now, since it's going to become obvious as the video goes on anyway. I'm bad. Like, truly awful at FPS games. At some point in my life, my eyes and my hands must have divorced on very bad terms, and now they are constantly fighting over the custody of my brain. Even so, I've always enjoyed playing the campaigns, even if it meant doing it on easy. The classic Medal of Honor games, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Call of Duty, Halo, Brother in Arms, Republic Commando, Black, Urban Chaos, Crysis, and of course, Titanfall 2. Because the truth is, even if I'm terrible at them, I'm also a man of simple tastes. Sometimes I just want explosions, the illusion of power, and stories that, even if they were short, had great pacing, and actually managed to move you. I was never that into the online side of things. With my limited talent and even more limited bandwidth, I just wasn't having fun with multiplayer. I do understand why so many people love it though. Friendships are formed there. It gives you a constant sense of challenge and improvement, and I genuinely believe the players who excel at it have a real, admirable skill. It's one of the most popular genres out there, and it generates millions of dollars. Maybe that's where the problem started. Well, a problem for me at least. At some point, publishers began to wonder why invest so much in a campaign when the real money is in online multiplayer. Little by little, the FPS campaigns started losing priority. Their quality declined, or they disappeared altogether. As that happened, I slowly drifted away from the genre and moved on with my life, sinking even deeper into 100-hour RPGs and what are basically Excel spreadsheets with different skins. Until this happened.
Our final world premiere comes from 61 members of the team that built Apex Legends and Titanfall. Welcome to Highguard.
I am the coming storm.
I let myself get hyped again for nothing. But in that brief mix of hope and frustration, I remembered how much I used to love this genre. So, as a kind of therapy, I wanted to put into words what it is that I miss so much about action FPS campaigns, using as an example the last truly great one I played. An underrated game according to many, one that probably didn't shine as brightly as it deserved, because I have this theory that its launch was handled by a committee of koalas. A campaign that proves that if this genre needs to fight for anything again, it's for stories like the one told in Titanfall 2. Let's start with the basics. Titanfall 2 tells the story of Jack Cooper, a rifleman in the Frontier Militia fighting in a war against the IMC, two factions locked in conflict over control of the frontier. After a failed mission, Jack inherits BT-7274, a Titan originally assigned to another pilot, and together they must survive deep behind enemy lines. Amid all the chaos, the bond between Jack and BT becomes the emotional core of a campaign about trust, sacrifice, and fighting for something greater than yourself. Is it the most groundbreaking, one-of-a-kind story ever told? No. In fact, just to give one example, it shares some essential DNA with Terminator 2. Titanfall also features a charismatic machine, explores its relationship with a human, touches on themes like empathy and care, and even throws in time travel, just with more clothes and significantly less body oil. And that's not a flaw, especially in FPS games. It's a formula that works, and its originality can lie elsewhere. That doesn't mean a shooter can't tell an innovative, layered story full of unexpected twists and meaningful moral choices. It absolutely can, and it's great when it does, but it's also a genre that doesn't need to be afraid of being a Sunday afternoon action movie, complete with the occasional perfectly timed cliché line and a healthy amount of explosions, without going full Michael Bay. A simple story can still be sincere, and sometimes that's more than enough to motivate you to start handing out bullets. The story itself is simple, but telling it with the perfect timing is anything but simple. In an action narrative, time is everything, and sustaining tension is the greatest challenge. Titanfall 2 pulls it off through the gradual introduction of mechanics. Movement, level design, and gunplay all evolving over time. Throughout the campaign, it builds small pikes of intensity with boss encounters, where dying a few times isn't unusual, or in my case, 20. But most importantly, it knows when to end. It knows when it has run out of new mechanics to introduce, and when you've fully mastered the ones it gave you. Before you get tired of it, the story wraps up on a high note. Too many games today offer dozens of hours of quote-unquote entertainment, packed with content as a way to justify charging $90. But it's not about length, it's about quality. Why do I feel like I've said that sentence too many times in my life? Anyway, at some point, the industry started equating open world with good and linear with bad. But at least for me, especially in FPS games, a more linear structure, no matter how much of a corridor-style shooter it may seem, reflects intention. It shows deliberate design choices from the developers that, when they work, can be far more effective than a sandbox approach where maintaining tension becomes your responsibility. Games like Titanfall 2 remind us that a great campaign doesn't last longer or shorter. It lasts exactly as long as it needs to. You've already got a story that works, but that's just the foundation. Now it's time to take risks. Have you heard the word identity? It's basically that thing that makes us unique. And anyone who survived adolescence knows how hard it is to find one that actually feels unique. But even if it's tough, when a game manages to define and express its identity through its campaign, everything clicks into place. It becomes coherent, and because of that, immersive. Every time I say that word, I almost feel like I know what I'm talking about. Maybe that's why everyone uses it. Titanfall's identity is movement. Mechanically, the game builds and refines that idea to perfection, honestly to a level we probably haven't seen again since. Its best showcase is in the Ark, where you are fighting across a chain of moving ships, and BT literally pitches you across them like a fastball. But that idea of movement isn't just mechanical, it shows up in the narrative too. You jump and move through time to uncover the story. That identity is a deliberate choice from the developers. It's a commitment they carry through the entire game. It's what sets it apart, what makes it memorable. And yeah, it's a risk, because it means stepping away from the safe, proven formulas. But it's a risk worth taking. Otherwise, you end up repeating yourself over and over. And sure, that works. For a while, but not forever. It's impossible to talk about Titanfall 2 without mentioning BT's charm. A robot with more soul than most human characters in fiction. He's basically the embodiment of trust and sacrifice. a weapon that somehow turned into a partner, and the lead in a love story that puts Top Gun to shame. But is that actually necessary? I mean, the genre is called first-person shooter, not friendship power sparkles. Personally, I don't think it's mandatory, but it definitely helps. It helps because when characters have personality, you care about them. And if you care about them, you care about who lives and who dies. Characters like that give meaning to the fight and connect you with the story beyond the simple goal of beating a level. I don't think BT reinvented the wheel. Again, Terminator 2 exists, but that doesn't take away from how well he bonds with the player, without needing 200 hours of dialogue. So no, charisma isn't a requirement for FPS games, but it can be the perfect weapon if you want to hit the player right in the heart. Lastly, I think the best thing Titanfall 2's campaign does is exist. Yeah, it sounds obvious, because it is, but taking that first step matters. I'd love to see the big FPS franchises believe in campaigns again, believe in telling stories and include them in their releases without treating them like a box to tick. Titanfall 2 is proof that when franchises commit to a story, it can create campaigns people will still be talking about years later. The writing, the music, the cinematics, the performances, everything adds up to a campaign that stands on its own. One that isn't just a glorified tutorial for multiplayer or another bullet point for the trailers. With talent and dedication, FPS games can tell stories just as well as any other genre. And no, I'm not saying that nothing memorable has come out since Titanfall 2. That was just the turning point for me. Doom, Half-Life Alyx, Wolfenstein 2, and a few others have kept giving their campaigns and the stories they want to tell the spotlight they deserve. But my point is that there could be a lot more of them. And it's hard not to miss the days when big franchises released campaigns people actually talked about, when you had players saying how good or iconic the story in an FPS was. So maybe the real question is why? Why should studios give single-player stories and campaigns any real weight again, if they already make plenty of money and pull in tons of players by focusing on multiplayer? And the answer I have is they probably shouldn't. Given how shaky the industry is right now, they probably shouldn't take that risk. In theory, because I can't deny I'd appreciate it, and I doubt I'm the only one. Focusing on the multiplayer side has brought the genre to a huge audience, but a good campaign and a good story have the potential to make it welcoming for everyone, including those of us who simply don't want to compete. And we shouldn't underestimate how much a strong campaign can enrich the multiplayer side, whether it's by building out the lore, or even bringing in new players, or convincing stubborn players like me to actually try online again. It's not about taking anything away from the people who love multiplayer. It's about adding something for those of us who love stories. The FPS genre is perfectly capable of doing both, of letting each side make the other better, and it's proven that more than once. In the end, it doesn't matter if you got the reflexes of a cat after 3 espressos, or Playmobil hands like me. We all want to feel like the hero of the movie, the one who rises above every obstacle, even if it's only for a moment.
A pilot sees the world differently. Sheer walls become flanking routes. Pilots fight differently. Experienced in deception and maneuver, even overwhelming odds shift in their favor. Now, I serve as a rifleman in the militia, fighting to free the frontier. I'm a long way from becoming a pilot. But when that day comes, I hope I can live up to the honor.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end of this video. I think I'm going to start playing FPS campaigns more often. Some recent titles look interesting, sure, but the stuff that really catches my eye is in the past. Pretty far in the past. Almost half a lifetime ago. Yes, I'm talking about Half-Life, in case that wasn't obvious. And the thing is, I've never played it. So it's finally time to fix that and see if I can understand the cult surrounding this game. And who knows, maybe even join them in the eternal vigil. Something tells me I'm going to regret this. Anyway, has any FPS campaign ever stuck with you? Is there a franchise you would love to see return in all its glory? Or maybe an online FPS with a surprisingly good story? Drop it in the comments. I'm always happy to add more titles to my list, and pretend I'll somehow live long enough to get through it. In any case, I sincerely hope this video was worth your time, and truly thanks for stopping by. You can also subscribe or give it a like if you want, and if not, no worries. Maybe next time. Take care, don't stay up too late, drink some water and all that. See you in the next video. Bye!